Welcome to Choreography, a podcast about the greatest sport on ice, figure skating. I'm Wendy Buskey.
And I'm Adrian Buskey, and this is our Cup of China 2025 recap. So, Cup of China is this year's second event in the ISU Grand Prix series. This is when it's gotten serious. The elite competitors are gathered, and they're going to the major events that are having a big impact on everything. Obviously Grand Prix is one of the most prestigious event series in figure skating. It really goes a long way towards setting up who will go to Worlds, who will be representatives for their countries, along with each country's like national events later on. But also in the Olympic season, it takes on a very large amount of significance.
And pressure.
Yes.
So much pressure added for all of these athletes as they get closer and closer to those selections with their respective countries. And I think we'll especially be talking about that in the pairs and dance categories as we go through this recap.
Yeah, and a phrase you will have heard us say over and over and over again over the course of this season, it's the competition within the competition. So often, it isn't just about who's trying to get to the top of the podium or just get a medal in general here. It is about how they're competing against their own countrymen who are all vying for those choices that happen later in the season, like who goes to four continents, who goes to Worlds, and of course, who goes to the Olympics. And there's a lot of that happening here.
Yes, and after I said pairs and dance, I remembered that the first thing that we're going to talk about today is the women's competition, and voila, the top two women there are highly representative of that idea.
Yeah. Yeah. So why don't we jump right into the women's event? And I think that some common refrains we'll get through this episode are a strong difference between the Grand Prix de France, which happened last week, where we saw insanely strict judging, where people were getting called on cues and under rotations all over the place. And here, where there's still quite a lot of those, but there are a lot of places where things don't get called. There is some sketchy judging again, not as much, but there are a couple of things, especially when we kind of get to pairs where there's some stuff that doesn't make any sense.
There's some weirdness for sure.
And some people who get GOE scores that don't make any sense compared to what they did on the ice and things like that. So let's jump into the women. I think that who we don't have any complaints about here in any way is a exceptionally strong showing from the US's Amber Glenn, who ends up at the top of the podium, which makes it now 4 Grand Prix events in a row that she has taken gold.
This is so great. It's just so great. I love the evolution that we're seeing from Amber Glenn. She came out here, was third in the short program, but still looked very strong, just had a small error, nothing to write home about. And in that free skate, she looked so comfortable. It was one mistake on her combination that looked a little tight at the beginning. And from that point on, she was just ready to go. I barely have any notes. Obviously, we're going to see improvements throughout the season. We knew that during this competition, she hurt her neck. Like, it doesn't seem like it's an injury per se, but maybe she slept wrong. I'm not sure. But one way or another, she was having trouble turning her neck at all, which seems absolutely ludicrous whenever you see the things that she does on the ice. But it only makes it that much more impressive that she was able to come here, accomplish what she did. And in reality, I think the thing I was most excited by was just her confidence. You could feel it on her. And wow, that is refreshing.
Yes. She drops a triple axel in both the short and the long. Both of them are essentially flawless. They are incredible.
Especially that free skate one did not get the GOE it deserved.
This is the thing that gets me frustrated a lot, that it seems like the women are capped on their GOEs on jumps versus what the men can get, because you will occasionally see the men get those big 3.5 to 4 points in GOEs that the women just seem to be unable to get, even when they do essentially perfect triple axels. I have some questions about that, but regardless, it looked incredible. Like you noted, in the free, you can see that her neck is bothering her, especially as she gets done, but it doesn't seem to impact her ability to skate a beautifully interpreted and executed program. And also just watching her in the gala, that comfort, that confidence. You know, when people say sometimes that like confidence is sexy, I feel like that's what you see on Amber Glenn. Like when you see her now feel so much more, or at least appear to look more comfortable in her skin, to look more in command of her emotions while she's in command of her athleticism. And what you get is this just confident, powerful set of performances. And like I said, in the gala, I think it almost illustrates it the best of all of it. It looks incredible.
Her gala is so good. If you haven't taken the time to go watch it, it's worth a watch because it really does exactly that. It kind of exemplifies everything we're talking about with Amber this season, from her dress to her look to every move she makes in it. The music choice even, everything feels mature, refined, and like it is coming from a place of a woman who understands who she is, what she can do, and is there to entertain you. And it's so powerful. I was so impressed. Just unbelievably impressed with her this week.
Such an achievement to have 4 straight wins on the Grand Prix now, really setting her up nicely for the rest of this season. But a no slouch second place from our reigning world champion, Alyssa Liu, who comes in here. If we look at the numbers, Amber won with a 2:14.78. Very strong score. We've seen bigger from the women this season, but as you
last
noted,
week for sure.
Yeah, as you noted, there is still a higher ceiling on these programs. So
Absolutely.
these were not Amber at perfect, so we could see stronger. Alyssa comes in a second with 2:12.07, and she did win the short program. So she's just a little bit behind. She had a couple of minor issues in the free. Now, we did see her bring back both of her programs from last year. So we saw the Leve program for the short.
Which is still magic.
Yes. And she got a 74.61 on that. So it was absolutely terrific here. And then we saw the MacArthur Park for the first time this season in the free. And I think that what you're seeing there is, one, I don't think that's the intention to keep that full time. I think that they just found that they needed to rework her Lady Gaga free and didn't have the time really to do it.
Exactly.
But I don't think she had gotten a lot of run throughs again on the MacArthur Park. So it seemed more she was running off muscle memory than practice on it. And so I think she made a couple of uncharacteristic errors that are just not the kind of thing that Alyssa does. And you could see her, even as she had a problem on, I don't remember if it was
I think her triple Lutz, and she stepped out of it and had to quickly add a combo because it was supposed to be a combo in the second half. But she actually seemed amused. She had said during the press conference, I believe afterwards, that she was kind of excited in a weird way that she made this little error because it made her think. It forced her to have to act fast and renegotiate her program a little bit. And she kind of looked bemused on the ice. Like, I'm sure she wanted to be perfect, but at the same time, she took it in stride like she always does.
You could see her actually look off towards her coaches and give them a "what just happened" face. But with that Alyssa Liu trademark humor, that is, like you said, just so refreshing to see on the ice. And when we look at Alyssa last year, where she was steadily improving over the course of the season, but she didn't medal on the Grand Prix last year.
Yeah, this is her first Grand Prix medal overall.
Ever.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
That's
in her senior
bonkers.
career. So as the reigning world champion coming in here and then grabbing a silver as her first one, I think is entirely reasonable. And it does put the two of them in really strong positions when we look ahead towards the Grand Prix final, especially after we watched Japan sweep Grand Prix de France in the women's category last week.
But it is worth noting, going towards that competition within the competition, the two of them being 1-2 here is great, but worth saying that Isabel Levito's score overall last week is in the 213 range. So all of them are in that same scoring bracket. The only difference is I think both Alyssa and Amber here had a few more minor errors than Isabeau did. Isabeau was pretty fantastic last week. So take it with a grain of salt, if you will, but it is worth that reminder. These women in the US are really close in terms of what they can do.
And that's always the tricky thing about the Grand Prix, is that you will see some hotly contested events and others that have much softer scores. And over the last couple of years, we've had a lot of talk about, say, like when Ava Marie Ziegler won at NHK a couple of years ago, she was in a softer field and she won with a score that was very beatable at a lot of the other events, but it just matters who shows up that day. Like you said, Isabeau would have been silver here and was in fourth at the last one. So it really depends on what the field looks like. But when we talk about the Japanese sweep last week, then we also have to note there were 3 Japanese competitors at this event. Only one of them performed really well and got on the podium. but that was Rinka Watanabe, which makes me really excited because I adore Rinka. I'm always excited when she can get out there and really show off what she does best. And even though there were some problems in these programs, she threw 3 triple axels in this competition.
Yeah.
When we hear people complain about the lack of ultra Cs in women's, we're seeing them return, and seeing 2 women on this podium who had triple axels in the competition is a pretty amazing thing. I think Rinka returned to a previous short program at this competition, and it looked really nice on her. She was in second after the short program and not even a point behind Alyssa Liu. It was very, very tight amongst the top 3 after the short. And I just think Rinka looked so sharp here. She did have some more problems when she got into the free skate, and that took her down a little bit. So she came in just a little under the 200 mark at a 198.63, well back from the top 2. But if she had been cleaner on those jumps, she would have been much tighter with them. And again, kind of a running theme here, fantastic in the gala. Maybe
so good.
Maybe like my favorite thing I've ever seen Rinka Watanabe do. She came out in kind of a suit outfit. She's wearing this cat tie, which is really cute. She's got suspenders that she uses as props through a whole lot of the skate. It's so fun. It's cheeky. And she's so bright and smiley. And Rinka can be such a game-faced competitor. I mean, she always has expression, but she comes off as kind of serious. We know from a bunch of the Japanese men that Rinka is actually a sort of masterful poker player and often beats the other Japanese guys whenever
Totally
they're like on tour, which is hilarious. But yeah, just watching her in that gala is a whole different sort of personality expression for her too. And anyway, I adore Rinka. I feel like you can count on her to get on at least one Grand Prix podium every season. I hope that it's not the last because I really enjoy her skating, and it was so great to see here.
I love her fight because she's not unaware of how deep the Japanese women's field is, and she's not letting it go yet. So yeah, her score here was behind the 3 women that podiumed last week at Grand Prix de France, but still she's out here fighting, and I really hope we continue to see this, like you said, at Skate America, which is her next event. I want her in the Grand Prix final because it's not out of the realm of the possibilities. So
yes,
let's see Rinka at Grand Prix final. I'm manifesting.
As we go down the rest of the women's podium here, in 4th, we see Georgia's Anastasia Gubanova. And again, really close. She's just barely edged out by Rinka for that podium spot. I think this has been the most consistent I've seen Gubanova for the last couple of seasons. She clearly really enjoys these programs. She's performing them very well. There's a few under rotations and cues that I think are holding things back a little bit, but she's not falling apart in the free, which tends to happen sometimes for her. And I think that her connection to the material and just her general energy has been really nice.
Agreed. We also saw some really improved programs, I think, from Shun here this weekend. She landed in 5th place here, which is still very solid in this field, but I do think that it might be disappointing to some who may have expected Gia to come into her senior, first senior season and really have a big command. But from the perspective of just getting into the senior discipline, this is really kind of impressive to me. Ami Nakai is an anomaly who just showed up and exploded on the scene. Gia is more what we've come to expect whenever someone as successful as they may be in juniors moves into the senior level. It's hard transition.
We spent a lot of last season talking about how much we expected Gia to kind of be a wrecking ball when she came in. And that has not been the case in the way that an Ami Nakai definitely has been so far. But again, competition within the competition, you have 2 Korean women here, and the other one is Haein Lee. Haein, who we'll talk about in a little bit, who's had a fair amount of success in the early part of the Challenger Series and doesn't do as well here. So as far as that bit of competition goes, Gia definitely comes out on top at this event. There's such a tight group of scores in this collection here because she's only like 2 points behind Gubanova. So the top 5 there's a big separation between 1 and 5, but there's still very incremental steps between all of them. And I think overall it was a really good performance. It's when we get down into like 6th, we get another one of the Japanese women with Rino Matsuike. And here's one of the places where I have some arguments with the judging, because Rino is a delight. She is skating skills personified. And she skated a dynamite short program. And if you watch Renault a lot over the last couple of seasons, the problem that you often see is that she's a free skater, and the short programs have often kind of betrayed her. Here, her free skate is fantastic. I mean, it had her in 6th after the short, but it was still a beautiful, beautiful skate. The free program was mostly awesome, and her skating skills were well on display, but she had a bizarre fall in the middle of her footwork sequence right after that perfect outside forward edge that everybody loses their minds when they see, because it is just such a spectacular thing. And I want to caveat 2 things here. I want to asterisk 2 things. One is that a characteristic of this event was that the venue was hot.
Yes.
You can see every skater coming off the ice just dripping sweat. There are times in close-ups where you can literally see their blades dripping. Like when you watch like the pairs, you will see sometimes in lifts and you'll literally see water dripping off of their blades. That means that not only is it just hot for the skaters, but it means the ice is a little softer, and that can make it a lot harder to go fast. And that can make certain things in your footing have challenges. And I think what you saw was many of the competitors a lot slower than you're used to seeing them on what seemed like fairly soft ice. And I don't know if that had an impact on her during that footwork sequence or if it was just one of those fluke falls. But the other thing was just Renault getting very low GOE component scores.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say they were low, but her skating skill scores were far below what I think they should be. And I am obviously not a judge, but I saw several other people who may have a little bit more expertise in that area than myself online talking about it, just saying the same thing. This is Renault Matsuike. That is her specialty. She isn't the most consistent or dynamic jumper. She has nice spins, but they're not the best spins. But her edges, her footwork, and her skating skills in particular are magnificent. And whenever she is getting in the high 6s and 7s and not in the 8s, maybe even 9s, but that might be pushing it at this point. We know how skating works. But still, it's like, that's distressing. Like, it's like, what isn't she doing here? And is she just being given those numbers? Like, if you're just looking at overall grade of execution, that's one thing. But whenever you're looking at skating skills specifically, I'm like, that's what she soars in. So I'm confused. And if someone has information that would contradict this, please share. As always, I'm open to being wrong. But watching this, it was a little distressing.
Yeah, I think that the problem that so many fans have is when we see component scores go through the roof for skaters who are technically extremely proficient, but maybe artistically deficient. And then sometimes when you see the ones who are truly artistic get those low component scores, and it just doesn't make any sense to you. And that definitely feels like the case. And not that I think that Renault should have been necessarily higher in the ranking here.
No,
I think
the placement makes sense.
Yeah, she's well behind Jia Shin, and I think that that's correct, but it still just isn't the numbers that I think that she should have gotten. But then if we go just quickly down the rest of the line of the women's, in 7th, we get China's Riang Zhang. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. We got to see her at the Olympic qualifier event, and she is just a delight. She is so bright and shiny and enjoyable. There's still a distinct kind of junior quality about her skating, but the energy that she brings is just so refreshing. She is just like that breath of fresh air when you see her on the ice, and I really liked every performance that we saw from her. Again, a running refrain will be how much I enjoyed her in the gala as well. Just really nice stuff. She's really fun to watch.
On a different note, we see the next 3 women underperform from what we had hoped or expected from them. Anna Pizzetta from Italy ended up 8th here, just looked stiff, looked uncomfortable, and just never looked fully present in her performances. So I think, again, her placement seems accurate to me. It just mostly felt like, well, at least you didn't run into the board, so that's good.
That's a running joke for if you go to Anna's Instagram account, her image is literally her running face first into the boards. And if you read her ISU bio, it literally says in her hobbies, crashing into the boards.
Yes.
She certainly has a sense of humor because it's happened a few times for her.
She's amazing. She jumps so big and fast.
Yeah, she is such an aesthetic jumper. Like, she gets so much height, so much distance. They're incredible. But this whole season, she just hasn't looked confident in her programs. It worries me a little bit about how she's doing in her training because she is a really quality skater, and we're just not seeing her look comfortable in anything that she's done yet.
Yeah. Han Lee in ninth, I'm just disappointed because she has changed her programs back to old ones. The short, less disappointed. She went back to her Sirens short program that I actually think is fantastic.
Yeah, it's a better choice than the My Way program she was doing.
Agreed. But that free skate, she talked about like that it would be more comfortable, and she feels like it's Carmen that she had started the season with wasn't coming together well. And I understand that if that's the way she feels about it, but it was obvious as a viewer that she's not 100% comfortable in this program again yet. Like, and that may come
Notre Dame. Yeah.
It may come in time, but I really am sad to see that Carmen program go because I did feel like that, from my perspective, was starting to come together and really look great on her. So I trust that she is doing what she needs to do to make sure she is ready to fight for that other Olympic spot that Shun probably won't get because Shun will probably get one, and then it's probably between Haein and Cheon Kim is my guess, but we'll see.
This just lends itself towards that frustration I have sometimes with the Korean coaching, where there's just so many times there are just choices I don't understand. And I really like that Carmen program, and I like it a lot better than the Notre Dame program. And considering she won a couple weeks ago, she won Dennis 10, and now she's in ninth at this Grand Prix event. It should not have ended up that way. She's a better skater than this, and I feel like those programs just really let her down, and I find that frustrating. Speaking of such kinds of things, it's seeing a 10th place finish from Japan's Hana Yoshida, who has one of my favorite short programs of the season because I love her Kill Bill program. I think it's awesome. I love the choreography. I love the music. I love the costume. I love her energy, but it's not working. And what we've been seeing from her these last couple of years is what I think of as the Rookie of the Year slump. Because 2 years ago, she came into seniors and she was amazing and she was just drawing every eye. And then over the next 2 seasons, we've just seen her diminish. And her technique doesn't seem to be working. And there's just a lot of problems, a lot of falls, a lot of pops. She is a terrific skater with fantastic performance. I want to know why it's not working.
Same. All of what you just said. Because Hana is fabulous. And this season, you would not know it. And it is really sad. That Kill Bill program, I desperately want a clean version of because it's one I would go back and rewatch over and over again because she is great in it. Like, there is so much wonderful choreography. She delivers it, the character part of it really well. It's just the technical side of things just aren't working for her right now. And I hope she can figure it out because, again, similar to Haein, Hana is a better skater than this.
Yeah. And in a field as deep as Japan has, I feel like without some extraordinary improvements, Hana's going to get left in the dust this season, and that's a shame.
I cannot imagine a world where Hana has a shot at that Olympic spot. So my hope is that she can just bring her season back around and then hopefully come out of this season in the positive and not in a negative way.
And just a quick shout out to China's Yi Zhu, who you might online find more accessible as Beverly Zhu, because that's what she's called on Instagram. I think Beverly is a lovely skater. She had a really nice short program. I think it was a personal best. I think she was really, really happy with it. She just completely fell apart in the free, which is a shame. But she is a really enjoyable skater, and I really liked her short program a ton. And I like the fight that she showed coming back from a disastrous start of her free skate to finish fairly strong.
Well, let's move on to the pairs, where I feel like coming into this competition, that was the most talked about discipline because we saw the return of China's Olympic champion, Sui Han.
I think the podium here shakes out the way we probably would have expected it to go, but there are some there's some questions. I think it's fair to call it some controversy around this one. In the top ranking here is Georgia Smetalkina and Berlava. And not a big surprise that they took this. They have looked so good so far this season. I think they've won every competition that they've had.
I believe so, yeah.
3 straight or 4 straight or something like that. It's been a ton. They had that just astronomical score at the Georgian Challenger event that felt like a little bit like home cooking, but it was an undeniably great performance from them. Here, I think they were terrific in the short program.
Oh yeah, no notes on that short. I might add Anastasia to the list of people who are allowed to do the headstand because their program opens with her as the cape of a bullfighter. I think that is the idea.
Yeah, and it thematically works.
It does, and she does it really, really well. So she and the Browns, those are the only ones I can see that so far I accept. The rest of them, because there's a lot of them this season.
Yeah, there's a lot of headstands this season, and most of them are dumb and should not be there.
No, but hers is good.
Yeah.
She's solid.
Yeah, it helps that it's the starting pose, so she can just get into it before it begins.
And it's on theme.
It's on theme, and it works. And I think everything about that short program is really working. There are 3 basic problems with the free skate here. One, it seems like they've reverted their edit of the music to the previous version they had that has like sirens and speaking and stuff in the middle.
I'd already forgotten about that, but yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, when we had first seen it at the beginning of the season, you had hated that, and I kind of didn't care. But then when we saw them again later on, it seems like they had removed that. Now it seems like it's back, and I don't know why that reversion has happened, but regardless, it doesn't bug me, but I'd rather not see it there. The bigger thing, performance-wise, out of that free, Anastasia, I think, has a fall on one of the side-by-sides.
Yeah.
Although otherwise, she did look magnificent through so much of this. The scary thing was one of their lifts where you could see Luca lose his footing in a way that almost looked like he was going to just like drop her on her head. To his credit and to their training and his strength, he course corrects it and gets the lift back under control. But there were a lot of times during his lifts where he didn't look entirely steady in his footwork and had me just a little stressed watching it. And I've seen some people talk about how this is a little bit of a concern with Luca. Despite all of the skills that he has, his footwork in the lifts is a bit questionable. Most of the time, I don't know that I've really picked up on it, but here that really did kind of freak me out.
Yeah, it's something that I had heard and read from several folks before, but I guess I just missed it. But here it was really obvious, and maybe it is because I was looking for it a little bit more and not focused on other things, but he scared me just a little bit. I'm sure he scared himself and Anastasia as well. But thankfully, thanks to their training and just the luck of the moment, it kept going and there was no fall. You know, I'm sure they lost a little bit of GOE on it, but that was it. So big, a sigh of relief and a nice victory here.
They had a very definitive win here with a 217.24. They are about 8 points ahead of the second place finishers with the Italians. So very, very, very strong showing. But I do think this was also a really strong showing from Sarah Conti and Niccolo Macchi. The Italians look as confident and comfortable as I've ever seen them. Their pairing looks so, so good. It looks so healthy. The skates were really enjoyable. Their gala was so much fun to watch, like just so beautifully executed. In general, while their number is farther back here, and I'm hoping that they can clean up a few things and press that forward, I'm just really happy with the state that they're in at this point because they look really good.
Yeah, I mean, really, the biggest issue in that free skate was I think Sarah put her hand down about 3 times on different elements. So that's not going to help with the overall score. But at the same time, those are mistakes that are normal earlier in the season and that can be cleaned up. Nothing here was concerning. They looked confident, strong, and there is something this season about them where I do feel like they have improved as a partnership. It just seems so much stronger, steadier, and consistent.
And yeah, like you said, I mean, those hands down on the throws is something that they need to shore up and get a little bit more steady with. But in general, I think that their place, their progress, where they're headed, I think looks really good. Of course, the big story in pairs here is the return of China's Sui Han. We didn't know if it was going to happen.
It's been a big question mark all season. And just seeing the photos coming out earlier this week in practice and seeing how gorgeous Sui is and how solid they looked in practice. Like it was just, I don't know, there was something kind of magical about it just because it did feel like out of time.
Yeah, there's something anachronistic about seeing them on the ice, even though they look a little different. Maybe it's because she has long hair now, and I don't know how many times over the course of this competition did the camera go to her and us just go, oh my gosh, Sway is so beautiful.
Yes.
Like it's stunning. But I think by the time we saw them finish their free skate, there was a real sense of them looking like they were enjoying being back on the ice together. I think there's a sense, for as fierce as competitors as they are, there is a sense of unsteadiness through these programs.
Yes.
Particularly the free skate, which I think Chris at one point, the ISU commentator, said that they had maybe only actually rehearsed like 4 full run throughs. They have not been training together all that long again. And it really does show in the free. It is very kind of sloppy and disconnected. But, what we saw from them overall were the Sui Han highlights as far as like the throw triples are extraordinary. They look like they did back in the day, and they're magnificent.
Their triple twist and the free skate came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like the snap on that was
It's explosive.
amazing.
It's so great. But a lot of the other pieces are very unrefined. And the big controversy is their lift in the short program, which a number of more knowledgeable people than us have pointed out should not have been a valid element.
Yeah. And basically, every season there is a standard of what you have to include for your short program. And the type of lift, the Group 5 lasso lift, what Sui Han did was not that. I believe Chris Knierim specifically called it out on Twitter that this is a Group 4 lift. It's a press lift. I am not an expert in differentiating the lifts, so I'm not going to even try to explain what that means. What it does mean overall is that a short program, every element needs to be textbook. It needs to be what is described, because every team or person in singles are to do the exact same things so that they can be judged 1-to-1. Whenever there is a lift that is not meeting that, it would get a 0.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't like lose GOE.
It should be an invalid element.
It would be an invalid element.
And the judges called a Group 4 press lift a Group 5 lasso lift, which means that they got credit for an invalid element, and that invalid element would have plummeted their score versus what they actually ended up with.
Right. And I think there was also part of the requirements was also that you had to have your arms fully extended, whereas Han, through at least the first 2 to 3 seconds, is arms bent, like at his elbows. So the GOE makes no sense, but also just that in the free program, because they did it there as well.
And it was still called a Group 5 when it was the same essential lift.
Exactly. But in the short, it should just be invalid. So what this all comes to mean is that in reality, the 4th place team, the other Chinese team, really should have been on this podium.
So when we see Zhang and Yang, they are the team that did so well at the Olympic qualifier and got the Chinese spot qualified. And as we understand it, the way that the Chinese Federation is deciding who goes to the Olympics this season is based entirely on Cup of China and Chinese nationals. So just those 2 events are the only ones that matter for qualifying who they're going to send to the Olympics. And it just matters their cumulative point total from those 2 events. So here, when we're looking at Sui Han's 202.92 over Zhang and Yang's 195, you've already got this like 7-point difference there. When you consider that by the time Chinese nationals comes around and Sui and Han have actually had more time to rehearse together,
Exactly.
assuming that they're still healthy, they're going to be dominant. Like once they can fix up some of these problems, they'll be amazing there. So it basically kind of means that Zhang and Yihang have essentially no chance in actually making that Olympic team. I've got to assume that they were told even going into the Olympic qualifier that they were there to clinch Sui and Han's spot. I wouldn't be surprised if they were told that this is your job. But I like this team a lot. They were very successful in juniors. They're in their first senior year. They've been acquitting themselves really well. I like their programs here quite a bit. And if Sui and Han, again, had been correctly, as we understand it, because we are not judges, but as we understand it, if they had been given an invalid element and not been scored incorrectly for that same lift in the free, they would have been probably in like 7th here. And the Chinese other Chinese team would have been in much better position for that. So it feels a little home cooked. And again, it matches up with some of the things that we keep saying over the course of the season, which is judging that is inconsistent, makes no sense, and does not live by its own rules.
Right. We have said multiple times on this show, while we do not always love comebacks, we are huge Sui Han fans.
Yeah.
I was very excited to see them again. And so it's tough to watch them, here whenever, especially in that free skate, all of the lifts looked labored and they did not get GOE deductions that they should have for that. They looked slow overall. Sui Han have always been so fast, so big, and it's hard to watch, but you also know, okay, they've only been skating again for a few months. Like, I don't believe Han had skated other than maybe recreationally in a few years.
He's like a university professor.
Yeah, it's like you cannot expect them to just walk back onto the ice and be like, yep, back, Olympic champions again. It's like, by the time the Olympics get here, they may be. It's hard to say. Right now, they're just getting warmed up.
Again, it's just that frustration with scoring where you just want it to be consistent. You want it to make sense. You want it to be fair. And so many times over the course of this season, it feels like almost every event has a big question mark of why did this happen? And there's another couple here at the same event. So it's really, really frustrating. But
it is.
Moving down the rest of the list, if we look at the 5th place position of the Italians, Giardia and Ambrosini, they have looked very loose so far this season. So it was really great to see them have a big improvement in the free skate. That's the best I've seen them this season. They're a team I always enjoy, but their singles elements are generally pretty rough. Seeing them have a strong free skate where they looked way more in control of the programs in general, like they always put on a great show, but it just looked a lot stronger.
Yeah. Same could be said for Annika Haka and Robert Kunkel. They were 6th in the short, 6th in the free, 6th place overall, and well back from the top 3 spots. But at the same time, with Robert having had a very scary injury to his hands earlier this season already, coming back and being this strong, I think is fantastic. And honestly, this looked better than I saw them most of last season too. So nice progress, and I look forward to seeing more from them because they're a really fun team.
Definitely. A shame here was seeing a initially terrific outing from McBeath and Parkman for the U.S. Katie and Danil were so strong in the short program. They were 4th after the short with a 69.18.
A personal best there.
Personal best, terrific performance. They looked so good, and they've just been really setting themselves up as kind of a surprise improved American pairs team this season. Unfortunately, the free skate just came apart. Katie seemed to have a lot of trouble keeping up in it. They were just unsteady in several elements.
There was also that strange...
They were in a dance spin, and as they were moving into the spin, Katie's toe pick just caught the ice and stuttered and just sort of pulled them apart. And I just don't know that I've ever seen a dance spin just break that way.
And just stop.
Yeah, it was obviously disorienting for them to try to figure out what they were supposed to do as that just completely broke down. And it was an invalid element because basically once your foot comes down, it's over. It was a real shame to see because it was just one of those flukes. Like I've never seen anybody have a problem bringing it in. And it was just, again, just one of those odd things that happens. And it was a real shame. But, they're not super far back from the 5th and 6th place finishes here. It's just they were so good after the short. And then we saw the other Italian team, Beccari and Guarisi, have a pretty terrible short program. And then they withdrew. I didn't see why they withdrew, but they looked really rough in that short program. I can't imagine that it would have looked a lot better in the free based on what we were seeing. It's not been good when they get into the free skate and Lucrezia is not wearing her blue hat with the flippy uppy ears.
Yeah, her kiss and cry hat wasn't on.
Yeah, it was sitting in her lap, so she was not doing her thing because it had not gone well. So hopefully they are healthy and doing okay, and it is not a flare-up of the injury that she was already dealing with. I really like this team, and I'm hoping for more good performances from them, but it didn't look good here.
Yeah, overall this season, it hasn't so far. So fingers crossed we see better days for them.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the men's competition, which I think was a little bit of a surprise here, just because we, coming in, would have likely thought Mikhail Shidorov would be our top podium placement. However, Shun Sato came in to win. And that was really obvious with 2 extremely strong programs.
These were two very consistent, powerfully performed, technically excellent
So precise
showings from Shun. You know, the talk with Shun is always that he is a textbook technical skater. He looks incredible in the air. All of the pieces are there. Everything looks good. He is not the most emotive, either on the ice or in the kiss and cry.
Which was very evident in the kiss and cry.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's going to be a meme now. It's so funny, but we'll get to that. But yeah, I mean, we talked about that earlier in the season, that his choice of Firebird for the free is a good choice because he has a dramatic bit of music that kind of does some of the emotional labor for the performer. So even though he doesn't really emote during it, he can let the choreography and the music carry those big moments for him. And this is the kind of Shun you want to see. You know, he's landing all of his jumps. Everything looks really clean. There's very few problems. He just leaves no necessity for the judges to review anything. It all just looks so sharp.
Yeah, exactly. I could not have said that better. Shun is just, he is what judges want. He is just easy to score.
Yeah.
And these programs were just that. They were easy to score. I do always wish that we just see Shun look up into the crowd.
Yeah.
Like make eye contact with some people, maybe throw a little smile or just a side glance, a little eyebrow work. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anything. Just
make your face work.
make your face work. I would love that. But that said, he's a phenomenal skater. He's so proficient. And I do enjoy watching him. I don't feel anything watching him, but I am impressed with him to no end. So happy for him. And I am sure the Japanese program and federation are very happy to see this because, you know, they have Yuma Kageyama, who is one of the best in the world and very much a favorite for the podium at the Olympics. But the rest of the Japanese men have not been like the Japanese women this season. Japanese women, you could send 8 women to the Olympics and it might be almost fair. But the men, it's just been a lot of menning, to use that phrase. And it's nice to see him come through here and really make a strong statement for his Olympic spot.
And the kiss and cry when he wins, when he gets his free skate score of 183.99, his total score of 278.12, his coach goes crazy and is
wonderful.
So excited. And Shun just throws a towel over his face, which could be him masking emotion, but he doesn't show much. I think it's more a bit of cringe at how enthusiastic his coach is. It's adorable. I thought it was hilarious.
It's so funny.
But
I love it so much.
Yeah, it does just illustrate how reserved Shun is and how much his coach was just over the moon. It was really, really funny. In second place, we get Italy's Daniel Grassel. And overall, I think that makes sense based on Daniel's performances. I did not know that Daniel Grassel had such a huge fan base in China.
I had no idea until while he was doing his short program, the crowd seemed to refuse to calm down.
Yes.
They were loud.
Yes.
Throughout the program.
The Chinese crowd in general was like real chatty. There were times where you could hear the audience still kind of talking in the background, which feels fairly unusual, like whenever skaters are about to start their programs. But yeah, he got very, very enthusiastic responses during his performances and also during the gala where they treated him like a sex symbol. It's an interesting thing. I didn't recognize his game in China. And overall, his performance here, I liked him. I liked both the short and the free. I thought that these were really nice skates. I actually like his conclave program. I know some people have some asterisk on that one, but for me, that's one of the better pieces of material I've seen him do in a while. I think the only caveat I have doesn't have anything to do with him. It has to do with the judging.
As always. It's maybe not always, often. It's really that, as has happened many times in other competitions with Daniel, he has some under rotation issues, and there were several that were called and several more that were not called, that were fairly obvious.
Yeah.
And even Chris, the commentator for the ISU network, brought up one of them. He's like, well, he got away with that one. It's not unusual for skaters to get away with under rotations and cues, but whenever you're dinging other people, and we'll get to that with Mikhail Shidorov,
yep,
it's really hard to swallow whenever you see someone get away with it and end up on the second spot on the podium and someone else get called for something that seems frankly invisible. Like I didn't see it, couldn't see it at all.
Yeah.
And they get an under rotation and end up behind them. So it's those places where it is frustrating. That said, other than the fact that his conclave program opens with the line, "The Pope is dead," which
oh
will never not make me laugh a little bit. Like what the heck?
It's fairly cringe.
It is fairly cringe. Other than that, I think the conclave program for Daniel is a pretty good vehicle.
Yeah. Again, I liked his programs here. I think that it sucks that he didn't get called on obvious under rotations when other skaters were, and that seemed to be a running theme through both of his programs. It's not his fault, though. That's just bad judging, and we just continue to see bad judging. I think that the third place placement for Mikhail Shaidarov is a little surprising if you're looking at the end of last year when, he's a world silver medalist and he won 4 continents. But if you look at him last year on the Grand Prix, he wasn't all that great on the Grand Prix last year. He was really figuring out new layouts and figuring out new combinations and testing things on his way towards the end of the season. I think the early part of the season, we were seeing Mikhail doing that same thing, trying to fine tune his programs and work them out. I have to say here, though, I did not like his free skate.
Me neither.
I don't really like the music edit. I didn't really enjoy his performance. It felt kind of messy and disconnected. He just didn't quite look like he was awake on the ice. The spins still don't look very good. And in general, while I think that he, in full command, should have been able to top the podium here, I think that him landing in third makes sense just based on what he gave, which didn't look complete.
That's exactly it. For one, going back to what I was saying about under rotations, he got called for an under rotated jump in the short program that I have rewatched a couple of times and I have no idea where that is. Chris, the commentator, again, bringing him into this, didn't see it either, went online, looked at a whole bunch of people being like, where was that? Didn't see it, including one of his coaches who called it out as, he rewatched it dozens of times and couldn't find it. That said, we are not seeing all angles. Maybe we missed something, but a cue maybe, but it certainly did not look like a full under rotation at all. So he should have been higher in the short program. Still probably behind Shun, honestly.
Yeah, but he would have been ahead of Daniel Grassl.
Yeah, and I think really tight with Shun for that top spot.
Yeah.
But his free skate, I 100% agree. I think that
it's a mess.
It's a mess. The music edit needs some help, and he just looks out of sorts. And to your point, he wasn't as great in the early part of last season either, that we saw, the fully fledged version of him at Worlds, which was incredible. This program doesn't seem like it works to me. I'm hoping it gets better and grows on me because I adore Misha. I really want him to be in that hunt at the Olympics. And frankly, when his jumps are on and if he can get his spins up to par, he will be, because he's a powerhouse.
Yeah, he can do a 5-quad layout.
He does a combo that no one else does.
Right. He's completely capable of, on a technical basis, being extremely competitive. And he does have artistry. His holes are just that he sometimes just locks in and gives highly technical but emotionally underwhelming performances, and that his spins, they're still just not super strong.
I didn't think of this until this second, but it actually kind of reminds me in a weird way of Yuma Kageyama last year, where I liked Yuma Kageyama's programs last year, but he never looked fully in them.
Yeah.
He never looked like Yuma Kageyama. He never looked happy. He never looked content. He never looked totally present in them. He was so focused on must get the jumps, must get the technical, must get all the elements done, that you never saw him just being on the ice. Last year, Misha was just being. It was amazing to watch, and you felt like you watched someone come into their own. And now I feel like he knows that it's the Olympic season, and he is just going through every motion must do this, must do that, must do this. And I don't feel him, and it makes me sad because I know there is this personality in there and it's not showing, and it makes him look stiffer. All the movements feel a little more robotic, and I'm waiting for that reawakening.
one of the things with Misha is that he works best when he's doing sort of cinematic programs.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell he likes to use movie music and play with the thematics from them. And when we've seen earlier programs like his Matrix program, his Dune program, when they're successful, he's like making a movie on ice. This Fifth Element program, he's dressed in a sci-fi costume. It does the diva dance at the end, but with an edit that just doesn't work for me as somebody who's a big fan of that soundtrack. And it's just not telling a story. It's just some pieces that don't quite fit together. It's not working. I wouldn't be surprised if he scrapped it at some point and went back to Dune closer to the end of the season.
I'd be thrilled if he did, honestly.
Yeah, I want to see something that works better. And right now, it doesn't feel quite right. Or maybe it was just one off event, but I don't know. I'm just hoping for better because I adore Misha and I think he's capable of a lot more. And at the same time, last year, it was a glow up. So maybe he's just on that trajectory to get better as the season goes along. And this is just the dip. I don't know.
I want to say slow glow.
A slow glow? He's on the slow glow.
He's on the slow glow.
Yeah.
I do really want to spend a minute, though, talking about the unsung hero of the United States, Tomoki Hiwatashi.
Yeah, Tomoki comes in fourth here in a competition that has several other very strong competitors. And we've talked so much this season about the third man position for the Americans. You know, we have Ilya Malinin and we have Jason Brown. They're almost guaranteed to be our Olympic representatives. And then there's that third spot that we would largely think is a fight between Max Namov and Andrew Torgashev with question marks around, say, like Jimmy Ma. And then we have Tomoki Hiwatashi having a very strong season, coming in fourth here and getting a 245.71, which is not a competitive score with those guys at the top of the podium, but does, I believe, mark him as having the best score of the season so far from any of those other American men, including Max and Andrew.
That is absolutely correct. And also worth noting, this is his, I believe, third competition of the season so far internationally. And the first two he medaled at. So he's got 2 third place medals on the international scene. And then he comes here and he is fourth behind 3 really strong competitors and does a fantastic job. And yeah, has a new personal best, seemed absolutely overwhelmed with his score in the most wonderful way in the kiss and cry, and also makes him kind of the dark horse at this point as the most consistent American man that is not Ilya Malinin or Jason Brown.
Yeah, I mean, he was 6th after the short, 4th after the free, and Tomoki is the guy that, like, on most senior seasons seems like a guy who has like one great competition in him and then he's erratic the rest of the time.
Well, he's known for being erratic.
Yeah,
it's sort of like Jimmy Ma.
Yeah, he can be a bit wild out there, and we saw that in his gala performance, that when he gets energized, he can really throw himself around in a way that's a bit inelegant, but a lot of fun. But here, he just looks better composed. He obviously likes his material. It works really well on him, and he's looked really good every time we've seen him compete this season. So we cannot count out Tomoki, because if he's showing this level of consistency through the rest of the season, he'll lock that third spot.
I would be so excited for him because, I mean, that's out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like, it's interesting and it's very fun, and I'm excited for him.
For the rest of the men, I think there's just a couple of just quick things to note. You're always happy to see Bo Yang Jin.
The Chinese audience is always happy to see him. Noteworthy to mention, it's the closest we will see to Yuzuru Hanyu's days of all of the Winnie the Poohs.
Yeah.
This time it's Spider-Man being thrown all over the ice in a way that is absolutely amazing to watch.
Yes, Bo Yang is always fun, and the way he's embraced by the Chinese audience is amazing. I think that we saw a disappointing set of performances from Korea's Junwon Cha, still just not looking comfortable in these programs.
That free skate. I am not over that free skate.
The fall, we've said over and over again, Junwon Cha, one of the prettiest skaters on the ice and one of the ugliest fallers.
It was terrible.
When he goes down, it is brutal. And he has a fall that clearly stuns him. He has a hard time getting up from it. It takes him a second to get back into the program. I think he falls 2 more times afterwards, or at least has one jump go awry and another fall. And I'm not surprised, because he was so shaken up. It was such an impact. I imagine he's nursing a hell of a bruise on his hip right now. I'm surprised at how beautifully he performed in the gala afterwards.
He was great in the gala.
Yeah, that was the best we saw of him the whole time. Yeah, Yeah, really nice style and a program that was crazy fun and was nice to see him bounce back because, man, it looked rough in that free. And this is a guy who should be up there in contention for that podium and
Absolutely.
not looking as good. I think the same could kind of be said for Sota Yamamoto. He was in 4th after the short program, but in 11th after the free, which was a complete meltdown and a disaster. I adore Sota's skating, but this has been that thing of that problem of inconsistency where sometimes he's magnificent and then other times it just doesn't work.
Yeah, and I saw him talking about the fact that like he did have an injury. He's feeling fine now, but he just hasn't had the repetition, the practice to like figure it out and how to get back into full form. But yeah, this is probably the worst I've ever seen Soto look. His short program was solid. His free skate was disastrous.
Yeah.
So I'm sending him good vibes, and hopefully by his next assignment, he's looking better because there's not much time before Japanese nationals. They're going to be upon us before we know it.
And I also just want to mention the 10th place finish from Latvia's Denis Vasilievs. Not really about the performances here, which are okay, but like he's here without a coach and really without really a school at this point. We talked about in the last episode that he has actually left Stefan Lambiel's camp, and that also there have been a number of issues with sort of the Latvian Federation with a lot of their skaters. We were drawing possible correlations and connections between those based on just the information that we had. Now, we have talked to a trusted and reliable source who is closer to the situation and knows more accurately what's going on there. And what they have said is that the change in coaching and the Latvian Federation stuff are completely unconnected.
In general, it just means we know as much as everybody else knows. We know that he left Lambiel's camp. We know that there are issues outside of that that are completely separate, and that we'll know more whenever Denise wants to share more.
Yeah.
And that's, I've kind of feel bad for like even having drawn that correlation. Sorry for any misinformation or confusion that we caused, because Denise is wonderful. We send him all of the support in whatever choices he is making to do right by himself, because he's a wonderful skater, seems like a wonderful human. So yeah, sending him lots of support in his transition to whatever's next.
Definitely not the best set of performances here. He ends up with a 204 or 51. But given his situation, his training has changed a lot. It's not surprising that there would be some challenges in getting it all back together. But he seemed really happy, even though he's sitting by himself in the kiss and cry. He got huge fan support both before and during the event, and you could tell that meant everything to him. And I was happy to see that.
Me too. Let's finish this up with the dance competition, where we got to see our first viewing of Madison Chock and Evan Bates.
Yeah. I think that what we saw from Chock and Bates was good, but not great.
Agreed.
I like both programs. I think that the music edit in the rhythm dance is, again, just a little busier than I would like to hear it, which was a problem last season. And in general, what we see from Chock and Bates kind of every season is they choose not to do the Challenger Series. They show up in the Grand Prix. They're not perfect to begin the season, and they iterate and they fix and they adapt until by the end of the season, they're very, very strong. I think this is a season where I don't know that they have as much leeway to do that with the entrance of Fournier Boudre and Cicerone and the way that has shaken up the ice dance sphere. I don't know that they have as much room to have those little errors and problems in the programs as they build their score. And we know reputation and momentum and all those things are so important on ice dance, even when they don't feel fair. I could look at these programs and say, I think they're cool. I think the costumes are awesome. I think they look amazing. There's a caveat to maybe about the dress in the free, but in general, I think they're good choices on them. But there are a number of little errors. They were slow. They were like really slow on the ice in a way that maybe it's them just being really careful in new programs that aren't fully lived in yet. Maybe it's the nature of dancing in a crazy dress, which feels like it could be a massive liability.
Maybe
I don't
it's
know.
the sauna quality of the rink, but they were definitely a lot slower. But I do want to kind of dig into a little bit of those mistakes and how they are relevant this season. So to your point about they were a little messy here and there, the short program less than the free to me,
Yeah, this is the Lenny Kravitz, American Woman, Are You Gonna Go My Way, Fly Away program.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I feel like 4 songs might be too much. 3 songs might be better, but that's just my opinion. But I overall like the program. I think by the time it is in its full form, it's going to be great. I have no doubts about that. They lost some levels on their midline and pattern steps, so an 84-44 would have ever so slightly beaten Lila and Lewis, who were first at Grand Prix de France, by like just a little smidge.
A sliver.
So not as much of a as you would expect.
Right.
From those two teams opposite each other. The free dance, I'm a little more concerned about. One, the dress issue. I think it's brilliant and it's gorgeous what she created. And it's very cool that in this flamenco themed, Evan is the bull and she's the matador. It works in terms of its look aesthetically. And there's a moment at the very end where she just flicks her wrist and like the skirt falls over her arm like the cape would. And it's brilliant the way she does it.
It's spot on thematically. It's really, really nice.
That said, I really think the skirt needs some adjustments. Maybe if it were like transparent material and not so heavy looking, it just seems to like twist around her legs or just cover her legs during a lot of the intricate moments during the program. So not only does it immediately like trigger that fall risk concern, but it also limits the visibility of what she's performing. So oftentimes I feel like it's more detrimental, even though thematically and aesthetically it's beautiful.
Masking the movements of her legs with an ice dancer is potentially a problem, and I'm wondering what kind of feedback they'll get from the judges. You know, the gala program they've been doing for like the last like year and a half or so that has like the big silk sheet and caused them to have a serious fall in one of the galas. I've never gotten over.
You're traumatized by that
program. I am
program.
traumatized by that, particularly because I always worry about anytime somebody introduces essentially a prop where it can go wrong. So much can go wrong on the ice without introducing another factor. And as dramatic it is, and granted, it will set them apart in this season because I haven't seen anybody else really do something like that with the exception of the Mrazeks. It does look heavy. It does cover her up a lot. And because she's got these like dark tights on underneath it, like, I mean, it does create a little bit of contrast with the interior red of the dress. But I do wonder if they're going to get feedback that the judges don't appreciate that masking her movements. If we look at the total here, they get a 123.81 for the free. That is not a number they were looking for.
No.
A 208.25 total. Again, not the number they're looking for.
That's exactly where I was going with the Lila and Lewis comparison. Because remember, Madison and Evan are reigning world champions. Lila and Lewis barely squeaked by the Italians in March to make their first world podium in the bronze spot. So when you look back at Grand Prix de France, and I know different competitions, different judging, that's all taken into account here. That score that they got here versus what Lila and Lewis got at Grand Prix de France to take silver behind Guillermin Lolo, Lila and Lewis had a 125.86. The pregnant pause there was because you could feel it in the kiss and cry whenever Maddie and Evan saw their score. And yes, they lost levels on the straight line lift. Madison had issues on her twizzle, so they dropped 2 levels there from a 4 to a 2. They also had some choreo-assisted jump issue in the very beginning that lost them some points. So there are issues throughout. Like we said, they're slower than usual. And some of the program just didn't look fully formed yet, didn't look fully finished. So this score is a first run. However, getting a score lower than Lila and Lewis by 2 points in the first competition of the season is not where they want to be.
Yeah. And when you have Lolo and Guy getting like, I think it was like a 133 in their free.
That is right.
Which is a
133.
full 10 points above what Chock and Bates got here. And Grand Prix de France's numbers for Guillot feel like they're blown out. They were fantastic.
They were phenomenal.
There's no question in their free skate that they were amazing, but those numbers, they feel crazy. But when you see a 10-point difference between them and them not looking as good as like Fear and Gibson, who are not an equal team, generally speaking, to Chock and Bates, it is concerning. And they have to leave this event with a win, but a win that leaves them feeling kind of nervous.
It has to be. You could see it in their faces.
Yeah.
Whenever those scores popped up, that they knew,
Yeah.
like they've got to make some big changes.
And I think that it's notable that they withdrew from the gala
for medical reasons.
Unspecified as far as I know, at least anything that we saw at the time of recording here. But it does feel kind of pointed that they exited China to head home. It makes me wonder if just leaving that, they were like, oh, we have big issues to fix, because they can't afford another event where they score this low.
Well, and it also scares me. I'm like, are they okay? Were they actually like, was one of them nursing an injury while they were performing here?
Possible. It didn't, there was nothing,
I hope not.
Nothing I saw in their performances that made me worry about that. I mean, they could have just gotten sick, or there could have been something getting ready for the gala. I don't know. I don't want to draw too many conclusions there, but I could also just see them being like, we have to go back and get to work fast, and deciding to exit sooner so that they could go back and just start, because I think they have 2 weeks before their next Grand Prix event, and they've got some work to do ahead of that. So I do think for Chock and Bates, the entrance of Guillaume and Lolo into the season was always going to be a threat to them.
Of course.
But them not looking as strong as, say, Fear and Gibson, and we haven't seen Piper and Paul yet, they cannot have this vulnerability and hold on to their top spot this season. So they've got work to do.
They definitely have some work to do. And I'm now very, very curious to see how Piper and Paul look next week at Skate Canada.
Right. And of course, when we look at Skate Canada, Piper and Paul, they've won it 5 times in a row. And they typically win with massive scores that don't match the rest of the season, because it always Skate Canada is always one of the ones that we look at that feels like it's got some home cooking for the Canadians. And I would not be surprised to see an astronomical score there as long as Piper and Paul perform well.
And I mean, really, I can't necessarily even blame anyone for it, because we saw that astronomical free program score for Lolo and Guy.
I mean,
they're going to want to keep them in, like, if they're great and perfect, they're going to want to keep them in that same level.
Yeah, but of course,
it doesn't make it fair.
Yeah, but there's just felt like a lot of home cooking this season, a lot of cookbooks, and I don't like to see it. What I do like to see,
this is where I want to go. Yes, let's move on.
Is the terrific set of performances from the US's Zingis and Kolesnik. This is the best I've ever seen them. And to my mind, to my eyes, these were the best performances of the ice dance competition.
100% agree. Amazingly thrilled. Worth noting, they were only 2 points in that free dance behind Maddie and Evan. That's crazy town.
Yeah.
Like, amazing performances. In my book, they had the best short program rhythm dance of anyone.
Especially considering that
because of Maddie and Evan's mistake.
Sure, but also considering that their costumes didn't arrive. So they had to piece together rhythm dance outfits. She was wearing Alyssa Liu's tights. He had to go to Zara and buy a shirt. Like, they were just throwing things together. So their costumes didn't look like their flamboyant 90s outfits, which are spot on, right? Like, they're so good. They're some of my favorites. So they're out there just like in black, and it didn't matter because the rhythm dance was baller.
It was amazing, like, genuinely. And they were so on. That rhythm dance especially, they were so on. It really might be one of my favorite rhythm dances this season. Like, it's just so strong. Their free skate is Romeo and Juliet in a totally different way than I've seen another team do it. It's darker.
As it should be.
As it should be.
Romeo and Juliet is a very dark story.
It is, exactly. So I really like it a lot. And their score here was a personal best. It's their first time internationally cracking 200. So this bodes extremely well for them this season, as they are, as many teams are, on the bubble for whether or not they're going to get that Olympic spot. Maddie and Evan have one predetermined for them. It's very likely Christina Carrera and Anthony Ponomarenko will get one of them.
As long as Christina has the citizenship locked down.
Yes, which I think she recently said was going well. So fingers crossed, that's all fine. But Emilia and Vadim are likely going to be in that contest with Caroline Green and Michael Parsons,
who notably had a much better looking rhythm dance here than the last time we saw it, because the first time they did their Groove is in the Heart program looked awful. Here, it was looking great until Michael had a really unusual fall that he hurt himself on, and it caused them to withdraw before the free. So none of that helps Green and Parsons' case. And meanwhile, Zingis and Kolesnik
have their best ever.
Yeah. Their faces in the kiss and cry are amazing. The Dame talked afterwards about how he felt like they'd already won the Olympics because this was just such a come up for them. Getting a silver here, a big deal, great performances. Again, to my mind, they stole the ice dance competition because I thought they were just fantastic.
100% agree. I do want to give props, though, to Ginia Lopariva and Jeffrey Brousseau. I've been a little lukewarm on their programs this season. They came in third here, and I thought their programs were much improved, especially that rhythm dance. I still don't totally get the costumes, but I'm starting to get the concept, and it feels different now than previous programs. I had started feeling like that rhythm dance was a little samey with other stuff they've done. And while some of the movements still are, I feel like it's now developing its own character. So I like it a lot more.
I think that's a great way of looking at it because I think that what we were seeing earlier in the season, it just felt like a reskin of last year's rhythm dance. And I think they got that feedback and they changed the way that they perform the program. Even if the choreography and the music edit is the same, what they're displaying, like you said, the character of the piece is totally different than what we've seen before. It worked a lot better.
Yes. Their free dance wasn't as good, but still much, much stronger than we've seen. I think their costumes are gorgeous. I think the music is perfect on them. The Bjork's thematic.
It's a great program. It really works on them and it provides such a nice contrast with the rhythm dance. I like it a lot.
I think it puts them a better footing than they were in the Challenger Series, for sure.
Yes, they felt like they were losing ground. And of course, the story in the French Federation is the introduction of Fournier Boudre and Cizeron has not only destabilized the ice dance in general, but it's also heavily destabilized the general placements for the French teams. And they have a lot to prove to keep themselves in that second spot. But I think they did a really good job of it here.
In fourth, a little bit of a disappointment for Olivia Smart and Tim Deek from Spain. Obviously, if you've listened to this show ever, you know we love this team a lot. Their rhythm dance, they had a mistake, particularly Olivia, had an error that was called a fall. It was a fall by dance terms. You wouldn't necessarily have looked at it and been like, she fell down. But it was enough to hold them back considerably in that rhythm dance. They did end up third in the free with Dune Part 2, and that's looking fantastic.
Yeah, it looks really good. I think it still has some places where it could be a little cleaner. The story of this team is often that their rhythm dances don't entirely hit, although they get better as the season goes along, but their free dances are extraordinary. I just want to see them kind of tighten everything up because they should be at this point one of like the top ranking teams. They're just so good. I know they've only been together a couple of seasons, but to my mind, they're just one of the most interesting and dynamic teams.
For sure.
And those free skates are so cinematic and so cool. I think a fourth place is not an awful finish, but obviously they're shooting for the Grand Prix final and they would have wanted to be on this podium.
I think that if she had not had that error in the rhythm dance, they would have taken the third spot.
I mean, they're still, I mean, we look at like Lopariva and Brousseau had a 196.60. They had a 187.51. That's 9 points to make up.
I still think they would have done it because I feel like there was a level of the mistake happened and I felt like the program suffered for it.
It's true. It lost a little bit of its energy. Yeah.
So, and that's just me conjecturing, but I still think that kind of took it. But regardless, they have another opportunity. They're still not totally out of it. However, their next competition includes, I believe, Piper and Paul and Gilo. So yeah, they're probably not making the final.
It's going to be tough.
Yeah.
I do think a fifth place finish here for Korea's Hana Lim and Ye Kwan is a terrific outcome for them.
Yes.
As a team that is one of my absolute favorites, they're so enjoyable, but who kind of drifted a little bit further back down last season. I mean, they're only in like their third senior season and they have really made a mark very quickly. But I think last year they kind of settled a little bit further back into the pack. This is them performing better. Their Men in Black rhythm dance
I love
is
it.
So fun.
It just gets better.
Yeah, it feels so 90s. It really, really works. I love their costumes. I think that the outfits are really cute on it. I think they execute that whole like Will Smith medley of music really well. I feel like it maybe got a little bit of an edit in the music this time around. I think it's just a little tighter. And in general, it just feels like it's coming together. But the free really lets them perform and act. And I think that's when you always see Hana shine.
It is. And I felt like I lost 4 minutes just watching them in that sense of I was so into the story because I mean, she is such a star, and that's nothing against Ye. Ye is amazing. There are times when I'm watching this team that I will intentionally just watch him because I want to make sure I'm not missing all the stuff he's doing, because he also does great character work and he's a fantastic dance partner. So I just think it's hard when you're watching them and Hana is just, she's an actress. Like it's amazing what she does out there. So I can't wait for this team to just come into their own, because I do feel like we're really seeing that progress now. And I want the momentum to start building behind them.
The one other thing that I think it's kind of worth noting, I mean, there's other good performances here. I mean, like Demoget and Le Menacier from France, like, are just barely behind Lim and Kwan. And I thought that they had very nice performances here, but they didn't stand out to me in the same way that I think some other events did. The thing that most sticks with me, and this is like very, very separate from the rest of the performances.
I know where you're going.
The Chinese team of Ren Junfei and Jing Zhaning, who typically I know her as Quinn, and I think he usually just kind of goes by Jean. I may be incorrect on his, I'm not sure, but I know that usually like Quinn is like the name she goes under, like as a Western name. This is a team that I enjoy. I really like what they bring to the ice, and in general, they're a lower tier team. Like, you know, they don't perform as well in the big international competitions, but I do like them. This really has nothing to do with any of the performances. It has to do with the kiss and cry.
Yeah.
And in the kiss and cry, it seemed like they were given this huge stuffy, which on first glance sort of looks like a rocket. And it's huge. Like, it goes across like three of them. It's like the two of them, their Chinese coach, and then they're there with Romain from IAM.
Who doesn't touch it.
Well, he looks deeply uncomfortable because...
Well, he's mostly trying to not look at it, and then every now and then you see him like side-eye it.
Yeah.
Like, what's that?
Because the notable thing about it is that at first you're like, is that a rocket? Is that a missile? And then you see it actually has letters on it. It's like DT something. I forget off the top of my head what it is, but I looked it up because I was like, that looks like a missile to me. And it is. It is a intercontinental ballistic missile that the Chinese government announced had been in development and was like ready for use back in like September. So this is a weapon of war. This is a government saying, hey, we have a new weapon that can be used against intercontinental enemies. You know, there's a lot of scary stuff going on in the world right now. And we sit in this space where, like, there's always politics at play. Even if you're trying to avoid them, there's always politics at play. And there are a few other places this season where I've seen some stuff thrown in the kiss and cry that I have a heavily raised eyebrow at, that maybe we'll get into it another time. But I don't think I have ever seen anything like a team sitting there holding a stuffed version of a intercontinental ballistic missile. That is terrifying. That is way out of line. I kind of can't imagine that the skaters themselves knew what they were holding, but I felt like their coach really did. And I could tell that Romain looked deeply uncomfortable. And I cannot believe that was allowed to get to air, other than that they were in China. But that made me very, very uncomfortable.
It was weird, to say the least. That's putting it mildly. You know, sports and politics are separate things. And it's like, yeah, except that we live in the same world. And so everything is connected.
Yeah,
so
nothing is apolitical.
No,
as much as you want it to be, nothing is apolitical.
So yeah, seeing something that it would be the equivalent of someone tossing a gun on, you know, a stuffed gun or a stuffed, you know, it's not like a silly bomb, you know, of like from old school cartoons where it's like a little orb that's black with a little
like a Super Mario Brothers bomb, something like that.
It's not that. It's like, no, this is real. It just happens to be in a stuffed form, but it's representing something real, and that's terrifying.
Yeah,
so,
it'd be like somebody holding like a stuffed AR-15 or a stuffed like atom bomb or something.
Yeah.
Like, it is
overall, it just feels like something that never should have made it in the building.
Yeah.
It should not have been there. It should have been removed. And they certainly should not have been holding it in the kiss and cry and raising it up like it was like a trophy. Like, because at one point they do.
Yeah. And that's
the coach and him. Not, I don't believe Quinn does that.
I'd have to
but
go
I have
back
to go back and look.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and see it again. Again, I'm trying to be charitable for like the young skaters that they may not even recognize the significance of what they're holding, but maybe I'm being too charitable there. It really did feel like the coach knew what it was, though. And regardless, that should never, ever have appeared there. That is a awful thing to see in an international sport. And it is certainly something that should see some level of sanction. Not only just wildly offensive, it's such a pointed message from somebody there in the building about like, look at our new weapon of mass destruction in a fraught time period where the relations between a lot of countries are strained horrifically. Really, really unhappy about that. I have seen that there are ways to put in some complaints to the ISU, and I feel like that is a very valid thing to do. I would hate to see young skaters hurt if that is not something that they were aware of, but I'm maybe, again, making too charitable an assumption about them. All I know is that I don't want to see that on the ice. I don't want to see that in the kiss and cry, and I don't want to see that sense of aggression that sends in an international sport that has only grown more connected and more friendly. Even as the rest of the world is a disaster in a lot of ways, the international collective of skaters feel closer and friendlier than they ever have before.
Right. And I mean, we saw so much coming out of this event from skaters meeting with the members of their Chinese fan clubs.
Yeah.
And it was so warm and welcoming and lovely. The crowds were warm and very responsive in the most positive of ways towards these skaters. So it's why it makes me sad, because this seemed like a wonderful event overall that the skaters really had a fantastic time at, and that it's something that is so positive that this moment left a point of sadness on. I don't like it, and I don't want to see it again.
I would like to see the ISU address it, but I am sure they are also
a little busy.
Busy, but also terrified of upsetting China. You know, we see it happens in media a lot with movies and stuff that, like, because the Chinese market is important, because their government is powerful and authoritarian.
There's a lot of money.
There's a lot of money. There's a lot of influence, and there's a lot of jockeying for political power.
The U.S.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. I mean, like our country and our federation have lots and lots of issues as well. But that in particular thing is just, there's no place for it, and something should be addressed with that.
Ooh.
All that heaviness aside, because that part blows, the event overall was really nice. I will admit to having a certain level of fatigue by the end of it. I think by the time we got to the pairs competition, I was really kind of wearing thin. I loved so much of the competitions here, but at the same time, there was just a little bit of that skating fatigue where that's just that many hours of it. And even as I like how concise the Grand Prix can be, there was a certain sense of a lot of like pretty good programs that weren't amazing. And I think that in a few places we had people who got to the podium with fairly lackluster performances. If I had to hold to it, I think that like the women's competition was the highlight of the overall event for me, because that is where I was enjoying the most of it. But with all of that said, we should talk gold in our hearts.
I like this.
So for you, Wendy, for Cup of China, who was gold in your heart?
I mean, I think it has to be Zingis and Kolesnik. Like, they were spectacular. They came up in such a big way. And honestly, with the amount of pressure they're going to have throughout this season, I'm just elated for them. They looked incredible. Even in their gala performance, they looked incredible. And she looked particularly smashing in Amber Glenn's borrowed dress. Like, fantastic.
In the gala, yeah, she was wearing one of Amber's outfits that was lent to her, and yeah, it looked amazing on her.
Yes, so it's hard to say anybody else other than maybe Amber, but she won gold. So yeah, Zingis and Kolesnik, you are gold in my heart.
Yeah, I mean, the same for me. Those, I'm going to say the three performances from them, both the competitive and the gala, were my favorite things that I saw here. All the same reasons that you said. If I added it on, it would be throwing it out to Tomoki Hiwatashi just for getting that fourth place finish and doing so terrifically there. But I didn't enjoy his skates as much as I did Zingis and Kolesnik, because they were dynamite and, to my mind, really the best performances of the ice dance competition.
For sure. Next week, we are going to have Skate Canada, which, as you mentioned, is always a fun scoring competition.
Yeah. Oh my God. The last couple of seasons, I feel like every time we get done with Skate Canada, I'm like, these numbers mean nothing. Like, they're just, they're nuts. And not to say that it doesn't happen in a lot of different places, because we've already seen it happen a lot this season. You know, Georgia and France both had numbers that were like, what? And Canada and the US could easily say, you know, hold my beer and do the same thing. But
we'll see. I mean, all we're going to do is see. But yeah, We're going to get our first look at Piper Gillis and Paul Poirier this season, which I'm excited to see what their material looks like. I do know they're doing a RuPaul rhythm dance, and I'm really intrigued. It's so, to me, I don't know that I could have imagined a more perfect marriage of material and skater. So I am very interested in this.
And their free skate is a reworking of a previous season's, like sort of a greatest hits kind of thing, but reimagined and redone, kind of in the same way that sort of Jason Brown has redone his river dance program. Piper and Paul are kind of taking a greatest hit and reintroducing it.
I'm curious. And we're also going to see Marjorie Lajoie and Zachary Lagat there.
Apparently had a massive score at their first non-Grand Prix event, but I haven't actually seen it.
No, I can't wait. And also Christina Carrera and Anthony Ponomarenko will be there. We're going to get another look at Ilya Malinin, Kevin Amos. Let's see who else.
Of course, this is Canada, so you're going to see a ton of the Canadian skaters, and you're going to see those skaters really going up against each other in that interior competition where you're going to have people like Steven Gogolev, who has been really strong in the Challenger Series, and reigning Canadian national champion Roman Sadovsky, who has also gotten on podiums this season, but not done quite as well as Gogo.
That's true. And we're also going to see Maddie Schizis versus Sarah Maud Dupuis. So they have scored about the same in the Challenger Series, and Sarah Maud is now successfully at least landing, if not perfectly, her triple axels. So that's going to be curious as well.
As I understand it, no Canadian woman has ever successfully landed a triple axel at Skate Canada. So if she does that here and gets it all the way around, she would be making Canadian history, which could be a big deal.
Okay, I want to end it on that note because I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
Oh, I hope so.
That could be really rad. So that one should, there's going to be a lot going. Every Grand Prix event, there's so much happening. And in a season as important as this one, there's so many dynamics at play to make these competitions interesting. So let us know in the comments, who was gold in your hearts this week? How did you feel about the judging? Did you spot some other faulty judging that we didn't mention here? Were you aware of that lift problem for Sui Han? And was that something that you were able to pick out? Because we definitely didn't know it in real time. We only saw people talk about it afterwards. Yeah, just in general, what was your impression of this event? I know we had a very, very lively comment section on the Grand Prix de France episode. I haven't had a chance to, we had a busy week and I didn't have a chance to respond to anybody yet. I will catch up with all those communications in all of the various comment sections, but we really appreciate some of the new listeners who came in and joined us. And the season now is in full steam. And I think people are excited, but also it's nerve-wracking because
I was going to say stressed.
Yeah.
Everyone's stressed.
Yeah. Excited, stressed, shaking their heads because of inconsistent scoring or people who are not performing in the way that you want them to, or there's just a lot going on and a whole lot more season left. Obviously, we have 4 more Grand Prix qualifiers before the Grand Prix final too. So the next 6 weeks or so are going to be pretty intense.
Very much so.
So join us for that recap for Skate Canada. And for Choreography, I'm Adrian Buskey.
And I'm Wendy Buskey.
And we will talk to you next time.
Bye-bye.